It's interesting because most people want to be understood. I don't know if they want to understand. There's a difference. And I think maybe part of the problem is we don't understand ourselves. So we want someone else to kind of process ourselves for us. So I think if we do the homework and we understand ourselves, we can hold space better and come into a conversation to understand others first. Then they're more likely to want to understand us. Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
conversing about books over a cup of joe.
Seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow!
And welcome to the Recap Book Chat. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We are continuing our conversation about the next conversation, a book by Jefferson Fisher, a fifth-generation Texas trial lawyer.
Written in 2025, so I would say it's kind of hot off the press. And today, this is Control the Moment. There's some good stuff in here. I'm so excited to get into it. Woo!
So good. And I love the way he talks about it. And he really covers three basic ideas that we'll kind of get into. That say it with control, say it with confidence, and say it to connect. So in this, chapter 5, what we're getting into kind of falls under that first rule, which is say it with control.
And you may wonder, like, I have a reading log and it says your first thoughts. And I said, I can't control the other person. How can I control the moment? That was my first question. And then my final impression was I control the moment by controlling myself, which connects with Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit, self-control. Remember, it's the last one. And so I thought, yeah, it's huge. But the thing about Jefferson is it's simple. You know, when you say simplify, he does that. He makes it very simple. So the first one, your first word is your breath. And believe it or not, I even shared that at book club yesterday because I was thinking, it's good information. So I said, yeah, the first word we should say is breathe, and you may not have a problem with that, but I've had dentists and other people tell me you need to breathe. So breathing may come natural to some people, but some of us struggle with it.
I think no, I understand what you're saying, and my older son does that too. Like if he's getting adjusted at the chiropractor, I have to remind him, breathe. And there's something about when you're anxious, there's this, you're holding your breath. And so, yeah, I think it's so important.
And he tells us how bad that is. Share this with your oldest, because if you hold your breath, it keeps you in a state of low grade anxiety and stress. And who needs that? And also it lowers our cognitive ability as well. So, hey, that helped me, because who wants to be and it's a low grade, so you don't notice it, but low grade anxiety and stress. So when you do breathe, we've talked about box breathing, but his is a little different than box breathing. It's like you breathe, and all this is through your nose. You breathe in 2 seconds through your nose and then one more, and it's kind of a quick one. So you breathe in 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then quickly. And then you breathe out 6 exhales. And that's always supposed to be more than your inhales. And then you're at least supposed to do that twice. But it maintains, and I've done it. I've been practicing today, actually. And it helps calm you, focus, that's number one, the breathe. And I think I'm going to work on that, because I think that would help you to watch your word. Like if you're worried about breathing, you're not going to say, hey, you bonehead. I wish I'd had this when I was growing up with my brother. It might have saved me a lot of problems.
It's so important. And I remember when the boys were doing MMA, their teacher, who was a high up I can't remember, 5th-degree black belt, very high up, but he also served in the military, and he said that they taught him this. I mean, he's killed people. He's been with bullets flying at him, and it makes sense that if you're not breathing correctly, you're literally shutting off half of your brain, essentially, because your brain goes into fight or flight. And so it is going to your extremity so you can run fast, so you can outrun the lion. That's the way our body sees that. And it reacts the same to a lion as it does to a conflict with somebody. And we have that fight or flight response. Our brain goes offline. The part that we need the most to have like he said in the previous chapter, to really talk to that person, their brain needs to be fully online. If they're triggered, if the stress response is triggered, you're not really talking to that actual person. You're talking to kind of the fight or flight response of that person. But I remember the Master Poland telling the boys about he taught them the box breathing and how important it is when bullets are literally flying past you to breathe. And then you can make the best decision possible in that moment. So why not take that into our conversations? Why not have the best conversation possible and stay completely online?
Definitely. Fisher, he talks about the Navy SEALs. They consider it so important. They have training, and it's called tactical breathing. I was like, whoa.
Or rhythmic breathing.
Yep. It's that
it
important.
Lowers your heartbeat. And that's why I didn't realize that's why they did the cadence too. Part of that is breathing related. I didn't realize that until he said that.
But I think, and then when you think about that is, if you want to go with what's the easiest thing to implement, I think the breathing would be the easiest. The second one, a little bit harder, because as you're at the top of that third inhale, when you switch and you're exhaling, you do a body scan. And to me, you kind of close your eyes and you just kind of feel where you're holding some stress and where is the stress hiding. And then you label it. But he does give a lot of different examples of how this can help you. But to me, as I was trying it, the breathing was easier, and then I felt peaceful. I kept feeling peaceful, but I'm not having a conversation right now. So, but if I was, but he said all this could be done in under a minute. You would do this. It's not like you're going to sit there. Nobody will even know that you're doing it.
After you do have to kind of build that muscle somewhat. Because he did talk about when he first did the body scan, it took longer than it does now. He could do it in seconds now, what would take minutes, like 5 minutes before. So I think the more you do it, the more in tune you will be. And be able to recognize, I need to relax my shoulders. I'm clenching my jaw. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I need this because as a chronic stuffer, I do it. I do whatever needs to be done and don't think about, have any emotion tied to it. So it's really important for me to think, how am I feeling right now? And the body scan helps with that. Because your body, even if I don't know in my brain what's going on, my body knows. My body feels it. My body holds the stress. So I love this exercise it's very grounding. Just like it's a recentering. It's a reset.
And he said to label it, think of the weather. This is one, I can tell I'm feeling a little overcast. I need some time to myself right now. I love these examples. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about this decision. I need to go over the details again. And you always start with I can tell I'm still confused about what you're saying. Could you tell it to me differently? I can tell I'm overwhelmed at the moment. Can we take this step by step? And this is for tired. And who among us has not been tired? I can tell I am not my best right now. I need to revisit this after a break. So, I mean, they're just like threatened. I can tell I'm feeling pressured right now. I need time to feel more secure. Hey, next time that car salesman comes and blah, 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 I'm just going to, I feel like I'm getting a little pressure. I need some time when I can feel more secure.
It's interesting that you brought that up too, because I thought without this, when we don't do this, we get manipulated. And you brought so what happens, because we've kind of forgotten how to be honest and how to be transparent and how to be real, and we kind of do what is expected or polite, but I feel like clear is kind, and so you can still be polite and be clear. And I love that my brother said he's said this for a long time. I don't have the bandwidth to deal with that right now, and I always thought that's a nice way to say that you don't have it in you right now to deal with this. And so, but I like that I can tell I'm not emotionally prepared right now.
I mean, they're just there's 2 pages of examples. So he doesn't just, I love his writing. He doesn't just tell you something and then just go find it. No, he gives you exact examples. And he says by verbalizing this, you are transforming insecurity into a product of confidence and strength. Isn't that good? You are flipping the script, and you're still maybe tired, but guess what? You got it out there. And now you're going to take a break and you will be better, you know. I loved it.
And you're being honest and transparent. And I love I can tell I'm getting upset right now, so I need to take a break. Instead of the alternative, which is getting mad, blowing up, and having this fight, instead of being honest with where you're at, and then coming back to the conversation when you can have it at a diffused level where it's not in the ignition stage.
Where it will be productive.
Yes.
Because that's what, at the end of the day, you want it to be productive.
That's what you want. Yeah.
And do you remember, it's been years ago, but we read the book by Carol DeWitt, Mindset. This just goes in with that so well, because you're talking about your words, your thoughts, and this is your mindset. And so he is training us, and that's basically what you have to do, because you want your default to be good. You don't want it to be. And when you verbalize it, it's so powerful. It is so powerful. I think that's why God wants us to pray. He wants he wants us to verbalize. Have you ever read scripture out loud? It's so different than if you read it in your head. It's totally. I've been going through Julius Caesar, and I read a lot of that out loud. When I don't understand something, I just read it out loud, and I'm like, oh, they're killing him. That's what's happening. I just I think it's important when we're saying this. And the third thing he tells us to do is have a conversation with ourselves, and he calls it small talk. And this is not like affirmations. Affirmations say, I am loved, I am enough, which they don't produce action. He wants your small talk to start with a verb. And I love that, because in 3rd grade, I would say, guys, we need strong verbs. So he is saying, like, speak truth. That would be one. Oh, I think one of his was wait for the right pitch. Let the facts tell the truth. But I loved this one. This was one of his clients, and her grandpa had said something to her years ago, because he said, if it can be personal, choose that, if it has a memory with it. Well, her name was Doris, and she said her grandpa used to say, tell him, Doris.
I like that.
So anything, and it will fit the situation. But I just thought, and you just keep saying it. And he gives it, like, if someone says, you're impossible, and your phrase you're saying to yourself is stand firm. I'm interested in a solution. If that's not on the table, tell me now. And I can't handle this. Positive. I'm choosing to address this another time. There's no point in trying. Stand firm. I'm not going there with you. I just recently heard him on a video clip, and someone said, if someone asked, what do you do if someone's yelling at you? And he says, start with I, and said, because you can't say you can't yell at me, because they are yelling at you. But he says, I don't respond to that volume. And I said, whoa, because he's in it. I thought that was great.
That's really good. And I do think affirmations have their place. I think, but I like that the way he talks about small talk. So it is different than affirmations on the same level a little bit. He calls it a mini huddle with yourself. I thought that
I
was
love
cute.
that. Yeah.
It's a pep talk. And I wrote down what he said. You must choose words that treat yourself better. Because how many times do the words that we're saying to ourselves, they're not good words. So you must choose words that treat yourself better. Tie your small talk to goals that you have. And then, like you said, start with the verb. I love that. It does infuse action. And he said, instead of my truth has value, which would be more of an affirmation, speak my truth. So it is more action oriented. And then, like you said, short and personal. And I wrote down, I've kind of done that. Let others feel my weight. Respond as a fully loved being would, because that's kind of some that I wrote for me. And then it's not no is a complete sentence. I try to say that one, but I'm like, that's not really small talk. I don't know how to make that into an action. And then it reminded me of Mel Robbins' Let Them. I'm like, that's small talk. That's what she's, and that is action oriented because you're trying to control other people. Like, I want my husband to read these books, and I get him books. I'm like, did you read this? I want you to do certain parenting things. Did you do da? That's me trying to control him. And that ends in frustration. That does not go well. Let him be him. I can only control me. So,
and really, there's a lightness to that. There's a lightness.
There is.
I have one that I liked. Speak up, stand up, speak truth. And this one was welcome to the difficult. And that goes with the book I just finished, Cold, Sassy Tree, because in that, the grandpa's talking to his grandson, Will Tweedy, and he says, when I was younger and you view a problem as a problem or a struggle, it's like, pushing mud around. But when he said, when I changed it, flipped the script on that, when you say it's a challenge, well, hey, I'm in. And he said, and how am I going to solve it? And how long is it going to take me? And he said, then it was fun. And I think a lot of it is how you view something. If we call it, I think I sent you this I think he's a comedian. I don't know what he is, but he is talking, and he said his wife stays at home and he works, and he said, and I feel sorry for her. There's crying. There's all this. And she's a rock star. I feel guilty. I feel guilty that she's doing it. But I mean, that's what she wants. But he's honest about, I love it. At the end, he said, all stay-at-home moms, you are working. You're doing the hard job. I know so many people say, oh, so you don't work. People are like, hello? I've had people tell me that as a teacher. I work, so I'm going to bring the plates and the napkins for the party like I didn't work. And I think that's just a point of view. Sometimes people think that was Walk Two Moons. Everyone has their own agenda. And that is so true.
Well, and a lot of people, and the fact that someone would say that means that they're living out of a performance mindset. So that means they're believing a lie that performance equals worth, and they feel like they have more worth or trying to earn worth. So, it's pretty easy to spot those lies when it's around performance.
Well, I know that, to me, and this is like 3 small things, but you're going to have to work on them. But I do think you'll be prepared. And then when it happens, it will be kind of easier because you planned it out. That's what he said. Like I think you need more than one small talk with yourself and build a little, because if sometimes it'll be an encouraging one, sometimes it might be mine. I put one, slow down, Sheila, because I do tend to gust. And so I could tell myself to slow down because I do. I get it. And one of them was use your anchor. I just feel like that one was really
like stay grounded type thing.
That's one right there. Stay grounded. And just write these down and kind of know that, because at first I read this twice, and the first time I didn't catch that they do shift depending on the situation. The first time I listened to it, the second time I read it. And then he says, do you remember the Bobby LaPree story what my small talk should have said, find the struggle. And I love that. And what is this person that's yelling at me struggling with? Find the struggle. And that's totally different than this guy's a bully. Find the struggle.
Well, when you realize that anger is a secondary emotion, very rarely is it ever a first emotion, then you know what you're seeing is a facade and there's something underneath. There's a hurt, there's pain, there's disappointment, there's something underneath. My favorite quote from this chapter was, "When you claim it, you control it."
Wow. Okay.
I thought that was good. So it's important to claim your emotions. And that's when he's talking about naming it, that I'm getting upset. Well, when you're able to claim that, then you can control it because then you're aware of it instead of just reacting, instead of letting the beast out.
Yeah.
So I love that. I thought that's powerful. When you claim it, you control it.
One of my favorites was, you can't control other people, but you can control the moment. If you're prepared. It's kind of like, which that answered my question at the very beginning. And then to me, so many times, if one I heard this on a podcast, they were talking about husbands and wife, and one guy kept saying, it takes two to tango. And you can't have an argument with yourself. So if you're controlling yourself, you're going to diffuse it because nobody can have an argument,
That's a good point.
Yeah, well, think of I Love Lucy. Lucy gets mad. Ricky gets mad. Lucy gets mad. I mean, they're going back and forth. Nobody stopped, took a breath. I mean, of course, that wouldn't be funny, I guess, but it does take two to tango. And so you could say, well, what if my husband or my wife that won't do this? That still doesn't mean you don't do it. You still do it. You show up and you do this and practice. And then eventually it may take a little bit, but then it's going to have I think your kids will notice this. Everything will change because you're not bristly
and reactive. That's one of my goals, to respond rather than react. And to do that, you have to breathe. You have to pause. And so that's my one word summary, is pause, because that's huge. Take that breath. And I want to hold space for others, but I also want to hold space for me. I feel like I'm better at holding space for others than for myself.
Definitely.
So
I would say
hold
that's true.
space for all.
I pray for you to have boundaries, actually. Who does that? Who out there is praying for their child to have boundaries? I do. I pray. And then I said,
well, you act like I'm not a floozy.
No.
I have some, okay?
No, I mean boundaries about you give and give and give, and then you crash. You don't know how to say no. No, I'm not saying you're... no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant at all. See? Okay. I'm speaking truth. Another one that was good, seek to understand. Now, seek to understand what your mom was saying there. And in the workbook, it even says you can ask people about what it says. I thought this was interesting. Like, what would people say is important to you? That's something.
That's a good question.
This helps you, and it kind of to, I guess, zone in, because you when you seem like you're all over the place, that means we're not focused, and we're, I think when your brain kind of is, I'm not saying shutting down. What am I saying? It's your brain it doesn't shut down totally, but it doesn't, that frontal lobe is taking a vacation, kind of
turned off
and then
disconnected.
And then, so the other part is more of a visceral thing. So this is huge, huge. You begin with that breath and then do a little scan. And I liked what you said about speak kindness to yourself, or how did you word that? But I liked what you said.
On the small talk?
Yeah.
Choose words that treat yourself better.
Okay, yes.
Must choose words that treat yourself better. And I started that because we don't do that a lot of times. We shame ourselves if we don't perform well if we're believing a lie of performance. And I think I've talked about that before, and I heard it from another therapist say something along the lines of, when you are breaking out of generational trauma or generational sin or anything like that, you're breaking a cycle, essentially a shame cycle. You have to have compassion for yourself. That is key to rewiring your brain. And it feels so much better. And I think I've used this example before of cleaning out the pantry, and I'm throwing out a ton of expired stuff and I'm shaming myself. I can't believe you bought that. My words are not treating myself well. I'm talking bad to myself. I'm shaming myself. But I was able to stop and be like, okay, that doesn't help me not do that again. Actually, it perpetuates the cycle. So a different approach is to have self-compassion and be like, hey, you're doing a great job. You're cleaning out the pantry. It's going to look so much better. Does stuff get thrown away? It did. Did you overbuy some stuff? Yes, probably because you were believing a lie, a scarcity mindset lie. But you're working on that. And it's a process. And you're not perfect. The process isn't perfect. But the goal is to move forward, and you're moving forward. You're doing a great job. That feels weird to talk to yourself that way. But in one sense, it feels weird. In another sense, it feels really good. And then I feel motivated to clean out the pantry. And it's because I'm talking to myself better. Instead of when I'm shaming, like, I can't believe you. Oh my goodness, I have to throw that away too. How many cans of this if I throw it away? Then I'm demotivated, and it gets harder and heavier to do the same task.
I'm connecting that to Julius Caesar because, everybody knows that he was killed, and they're saying Antony says to Brutus, "You're brave, you're all this kind of stuff," and I'm in my margin because it says you're ambitious, you're brave, and you list all these good things about Brutus. And I put in the margin, notice he didn't say loyal. I'm like, what? Yeah. Okay. In the workbook, it says to discover your values, answer these questions. The last time I felt like myself, my words and actions revealed the values of. So this would be the framework. So the framework of this might take a little while. Like, what was the last time I most felt like myself? Then you could write that down or think about that. I put staying true to God and glorifying him, living and speaking in ways that please him. That's what I want to do. So then when a conversation ends, who do I want to be seen as? A caring seeker of truth who loves God and others. So think about that. I like him on the last part of that, because when the conversation ends, how do you want to be seen? Well, if you guys went at it tooth and nail, that's going to blow what you wanted. Because I think we all are seeking to understand, and maybe not in the heat of the moment, but I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to understand. Don't you?
It's interesting because most people want to be understood. I don't know if they want to understand.
Whoa.
There's a difference. And I think maybe part of the problem is we don't understand ourselves. So we want someone else to kind of process ourselves for us. So I think if we do the homework and we understand ourselves, we can hold space better and come into a conversation to understand others first. Then they're more likely to want to understand us.
So be trailblazers.
Be trailblazers and do your homework. And because it does take work. And it's so easy to be distracted, and it's not necessarily fun, but it's so beneficial to understand yourself. And like you said, have those goals. Like The Forge. If you haven't seen the movie The Forge, highly recommend it. So good. And that's one of the questions he asked this troubled young teen without a dad who his mom is making him kind of get a job he doesn't want to. He has all this attitude. And this businessman, when he meets him and he wants to have this conversation with him, he says, I want you to answer 3 questions. But one of the questions was, what do you want people to think about you when they see you walking down the street? And that's kind of the same thing. What you're saying is it's kind of that self-reflecting. What are your goals? Like, what's your inner goal? Like, what do you want people to think of you at the end of a conversation? I think that really ties with it. And so, but you have to think about that.
And I heard a podcast on marriage. They were talking about if one person is trying hard and the other one, kind of a lopsided marriage, But they were saying, well, it's funny how some people say marriage is easy, marriage is hard. You either hear marriage is easy or marriage is hard. You could just pick that up and put it right here. Conversation is easy, conversation is hard. Well, a fluff conversation is going to be easy. It's pretty easy to flatter someone. It's pretty easy, but a deep conversation can be more challenging. But I loved his name is Jack Wilkie. He said, and I love this, he said, the framework of a marriage is hard. And you get that framework up and then it's easy. And then I'm reading this book and I said, so this is the framework. We're working on the framework of conversation. Once we get that down pat, daily conversation, it'll be easy. But the framework,
That's good.
We do have some work to do. And I love that. Yeah. I said, I'm going to borrow that for our podcast.
Which, that's really true about a house, too. When you see a house being built, once the frame's up, the rest of the house goes up pretty fast. But getting the foundation and the frame, that takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, man, this is taking forever. But then after that, it goes along pretty quickly. So I love that framework.
And it will pay off. It will pay off. But, it's going to be a little bit, it'll become organic. It'll be just easy. But right now it's kind of like when you first try a recipe out, you're looking there so you don't forget anything. Then after you have that memorized, you're just going, of course I have left out stuff by doing that, but you know what I'm saying? You're not really worried about it. It's kind of natural. So
I've also heard it said you can't build a skyscraper on an outhouse foundation. And what we're doing is foundational work. That if you want to go higher, if you want to get to different levels, you have to have a very strong, solid foundation. And so that's what this is doing too.
And another thing before we close was, and I think this is important because he said, remember the goal for the conversation and keep it realistic. Because he said, and he gave this example, if you have a friend that's pulling away, this was in the workbook, which I like this. You have a friend that's pulling away. What is a reachable goal? And I think it would be find out why. You could find out why. You can't say get back to where we were or whatever, because that's up to her too. But maybe finding out why. Seek to understand.
Or a reasonable goal could just be having a cup of coffee with them. Planning to have a cup of coffee. Starting the conversation. That right there. If you could just start it.
But I just think that this is it is powerful. Very powerful. So
what about your one-word summary?
Can you believe it? I forgot to do a one-word summary. I really like pause. I really do. I was so intense with all the three I've been breathing a lot.
Breathe. That could be your word.
Okay, yeah, I'll just do breathe. Breathe. Yeah.
That's a great word.
Yeah, I'll go with breathe. But I like both of them. But yeah, I'm going to work on the breathe. Let my first word be a breath. Yeah.
I love it.
So,
well, that is a wrap on chapter 5 of The Next Conversation by Jefferson Fisher.
Control the moment. It has so much. And I have sent this book to some graduating seniors, and I think that this would be good for a lot of people, but who doesn't? There's always room for improvement, right? Who doesn't want to argue less and talk more? Thanks for joining us today. And I was breathing there. Let's connect.
To reflect.
Catch you on the next one.